moving on from this story, Coppish Cow. Troy Deeny has said,
I knew this was coming.
It has to come. It has to be mentioned today. He has said today, it's just his opinion, but Mohamed Salah is not world class. Said he isn't. What? I know you're a Liverpool fan, so there's some bias in this. What's your take on that from Troy Deeny?
Okay, so I'll caveat this by saying I've actually met Troy a couple of times and spoken to him a couple of times. He's
I know.
That's
why I came to you first.
he's a decent guy. With all due respect to Troy, though, this is one of the wildest takes I've heard. I think he's completely articulated himself incorrectly. And the reason I say that is because I think he's going on the premise of he looks at certain footballers from an aesthetic point of view. So aesthetically, Salah can look very awkward on a football pitch. But I don't think you can disregard his consistency, his fitness, his numbers, and the fact that he's continuing to maintain the level at the highest level. Like in Liverpool this season, we're top of the league, top in the Champions League, and I think he's responsible for like over half of our goals, whether it be a direct goal or a direct assist. If you're not calling Salah world class when he's in the top 7 or 8 in terms of goal scorers in the Premier League era history, Champions League, he's high up there as well. If he's not world class, then most players along history are world class. I'm not going to sit there and say he's the prettiest looking footballer in terms of with the ball at his feet and all that. He's not. Vinny Jr., who Troy uses as an example, looks way prettier on the ball, way prettier on the eye. But in terms of effectiveness, which last time I checked, the main objective of football is to get the ball in the back of the net and score more goals than the other team. I don't think many players do that better than Salah. So if not many players do that better than Salah, then he's got to be world class. But all respect to Troy, and cheers for that, Terry.
I want to throw this was a quote tweet I saw above Troy Deeney's comments. And I wanted to put this out there for the panel to have a discussion about, because it is the international break after all. And it said, it's totally acceptable to think this, that Mo Salah's not world class. Don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking otherwise. It goes, we're in an era of poor elite talent. People grew up watching Baggio, Romario, Ronaldo, Zidane, Ronaldinho, Kaká, Messi. They snuck Neymar in there. Cristiano, because I think Neymar's more this generation. Does that make sense? But there we go. If those players are considered world class, is it fair to say, and I'm going to throw this question to I'm going to go to Toon Tactics, we haven't heard from him yet. Is it fair to say the likes of Mo Salah are not world class if those players were? Or do you put Mo Salah in that world class bracket with those players?
Yeah, I think Mo Salah is certainly world class. And I think there's probably a distinction between world class and what the post was saying around, I think what he's talking about is legends, if anything else. And funnily enough, during those days, people my age were saying, these guys aren't as good as the guys I was watching, i.e. George Best and all the other guys. So I always kind of feel like it's history repeating itself, and people aren't quite, I kind of look at the past with rose-tinted glasses sometimes. It's not to say that those guys weren't world-class or legends, they are. But I just think I'm always surprised actually at footballers like Troy Deeny and others kind of always living in the past whenever I hear their punditry, because they're still in that football environment. And I'm always surprised to hear just how backwards it is sometimes in terms of player, how they look at player profile, what they expect from players, skills and stuff like that. And I think Callum was right in terms of I just read Troy Deeney's assessment of Salah, and he goes, yeah, I don't think he's world class because I wouldn't want my kids to play like him. I've never known the definition of world class being, if I want my kids to be playing like that. I think world class should be what it is. Obviously, consistency over a period of time at an elite level, in pressurized situations, and et cetera. But no, I do think people kind of look at the past and what it is now with kind of rose-tinted glasses, and there's a development of what world class is and the players that we have. And I think there's an argument to say that today we have bigger, faster, stronger players, and you could ask, would those same players be as effective in terms of what they were doing then to what they're doing now? I think that would be an argument of itself. Could you afford to have an Eden Hazard yes, he can dribble past 4 or 5 players, but you need to defend at the same time, and you can't just have a guy that's just walking around the pitch, and when he wants to turn it on, he wants to turn it on. And so, yeah, I think Mohamed Salah, like I said, is world class. And there's I think it's important to move into what modern day footballer is.
What are you saying, Henry? Do you feel like the players that we now put in the world class category are a lower standard of player compared to eras gone by?
Well, first of all, I want to say Troy Deeney's a complete and utter idiot. Like, nice guy and all that, but that is complete rage bait. If anyone who thinks Mohamed Salah is not world class, you're tapped. He's been doing it for 6 or 7 years at the highest level, Premier League, Champions Leagues, won the biggest honours, been in, African Cup of Nations finals, representing Egypt. He is the best player in the league right now. He's got 20 GA already this season. It's pure rage bait. Fair enough, Deeny, you got the reaction you wanted. But in terms of the standard of player compared to, let's say, 25 years ago when you had the R9s, etc., you can argue the quality has decreased a little bit, but it's more of a system game now. It's not necessarily individual talent winning a huge amount of games. Like Salah, okay, he's not as pretty as a Vinicius Junior on the eye, or a Neymar on the eye, or a Ronaldinho. But look at his numbers. Look at his numbers. He's got 100. What was he got? Callum 160 Premier League goals or something like that.
Yeah, 164.
So we're talking about the conversation now is comparing him to Thierry Henry. So we now saying Thierry Henry is not world class. Like,
by the way, I'm not comparing him to Henry before.
I'm not saying that, but like his numbers.
I am.
But why not?
On a par.
Why not?
I am.
I don't need this drama in my life, boys. I don't.
That's how legends are made.
I want to throw this out there, though, right? Look, I'm not disrespecting anybody from the past, but I'm just this conversation takes me back to when I was about maybe 13, 14 years old, and me and my big brother was. I remember sitting in the living room, and Man United had just knocked Arsenal out of the FA Cup in the treble-winning season. So I would have been 13, not 14. That was in '99. And me and my brother were talking about how amazing both teams were and how good all the players were. And we're talking no different to young people of this generation. I don't know. Mo Salah's world class, and KDB, the greatest midfielder that we've seen, etc., right? Just for my dad to turn around and start looking at us like we were talking shit, and then started bringing up, players like Jimmy Greaves, players like Platini as an example. And I feel like sometimes this isn't an individual generation thing. I feel like you get 2 or 3 generations that are clumped together because of the overlap of players. But my dad wasn't saying that Ryan Giggs, and he wasn't saying that Bergkamp, and he wasn't saying that a young Nicolas Anelka, and he wasn't saying that a David Beckham were bad football players. But in his mind, the generation he grew up watching through the 60s and the 70s and the early 80s, he just held it in a higher regard. And now what I'm seeing as a 38-year-old man is kind of my generation, people slightly younger. We're grabbing those players, the Baggios, the Ronaldinhos, that era, and we're like, no, they were the world-class players. Everybody now is meh. But I just think about the younger generation. In another 20 years' time, this conversation's happening again, where people are saying, how dare you say John Smith is world class? If you'd have seen Mo Salah, if you'd have grown up watching Mo Salah, you would not be saying that John Smith is world class. I feel like it's like music. Every couple of generations, they always, they think their music was the best. But it's a case of, I don't know anymore. As the older I get, the more I think it's just a generational thing.
Terry.
Go on,
so
Cal.
do you know what it is? It's nostalgia. It's what them memories they give you. So like I feed off, like, as you say, the Henrys. Even going back to like the Ian Wrights, the moments that they gave you, the Dennis Bergkamp. That's what makes them world class, because you go back and you go, I remember when he did this, or I remember when they did that, and then you want to pass that on to your children. You get them to watch it on YouTube or whatever it is, that we got it on now. And as you say, in 20 years' time, it'd be my kids talking about, hopefully if he wins anything, Odegaard or Gabriel or whoever it might be. Be nice, fellas, be nice. But like that's it is. It's nostalgia, isn't it? It's the memories they give you. It's like David Beckham. I know he's a Man United fan. A Man United player, but that free kick he scored for England, for me, is always going to be an England legend, because of that free kick, because I remember being there with my dad in the pub and everyone going bananas, and it's, you know, that's the memory, isn't it? And that's what we thrive on. And I think that's, as football fans, that's what we thrive on. That's what we're going to pass on to our, you know, our kids and talk about. So yeah, it's all nostalgia for me.
No, I get that. I just want to say as well. I think you got to be really careful with these narratives as well. I always feel you got to be careful with these narratives, depending on who you're trying to shit on. So I saw a lot of City fans today, for instance, online talking about how that quote tweet and tweets like it are correct. That the standard of football today is not as good as it was. So again, if I was being petty, I would agree with them, because if the standard of football now isn't what it was, it means that City can't claim that they're the greatest English team of all time, because they're doing it in an era. They're also, and it's not all City fans say this, I'm using this as an example, but fans of all clubs do this. We had a gal on the show the other day trying to fight an argument that based on Foden having a poor season by his standards so far, it undoes everything he's done in the past, which is a dangerous narrative to set. Secondly, he stated that because he's only doing it in a good team, you shouldn't rate him as highly. To which then I said, well, Henry only did it in a brilliant Arsenal team. Be careful of the narratives you create, because you can undo your own club's legacies, whether it's historic or in the contemporary moment. And I think that I think you've got it bang on the head, Cal. That's Guna, Cal, on the nostalgia element. And I think our minds are built in a way where we can only take in a certain amount of I don't want to, not a certain amount of nostalgia. I want to, I don't know, you older guys, I've got to a point where I'm no longer looking at the new fashions that come out and going, I'm going to wear that. I'm at a point. Yeah, I'm very comfortable. And do you know what's really funny? It's still okay. You kind of get away with it in this era, but maybe another 50 years, if I'm still dressing the way I dress now, because that's how I like dressing, it's going to look like those old men you see walking down the street in their cardigans, in their chinos, right? I think haircuts, I think music, I think what you love in football. I think human beings are limited. We typically get to a certain point where we go, I'm done. I'm stopping here. I listen to a bit of modern day music, but I would much rather stick on an Usher album from 25 years ago than listen to something new, because that's what I want to do. Or I stick on, if I'm having a party, garage goes on, right? The youngsters that are in, my nieces and nephews are like, what the fuck is this noise? It's garage, bruv. It's great. But I just feel like that's happening in football. But it's the first time ever that it's happening in public, because everyone's on social media talking about it, really. And it's an interesting.